In this video, we're going to take a look at Ohio State versus Oregon. Kind of a new formatted video and really telling you and showing you how a coach would go about looking at a game and the important factors for winning football games. And just kind of go down our list that we roll through. The first thing we're looking at right here is the head coach. Who's the better head coach? Who do I think is going to have their team ready to play on a Saturday? And of course, I know Ryan Day has had a ton of success, a ton of different things that he's done in the past, and had some really good teams, really good seasons. But who do I expect to have their team ready to go on Saturday morning to play this football game? And to me, the obvious answer right here is Dan Lanning. I think Dan Lanning is going to get his team ready to go on Saturday. Do I have as much evidence that that's going to happen? I really don't. But I just have the feel Dan Lanning is going to have his team, the Oregon Ducks, ready to play on Saturday. So right there, very first point is going to be for Oregon and Dan Lanning being a little bit more mentally prepared for what's going to happen on Saturday as opposed to Ohio State. Even though we picked Dan Lanning to have his team ready, I want to dispel a couple rumors about Ryan Day. And I want to tell you right now, he does not wear makeup. This is not makeup. This is natural blush. So if you're thinking this is makeup and you want to ask him about it at a press conference, something like that, don't do it. There's no reason to waste his time. That is obviously natural. That's not somebody at the glamour shots just putting on a little bit too much blush. Naturally blushy guy. Ryan Day knows that I'm about to make up this statistic that 65% of national championships are won by the head coach with more blush in his cheeks. The rosier cheek coach wins 65% of the time, so he's doing his part. This is just another vicious conspiracy that keeps getting brought up. He doesn't wear makeup. This to me is on the same lines as far as conspiracies as Trudeau and Fidel Castro. That Fidel Castro is Justin Trudeau's dad. No chance. I mean, even though you look at these pictures, and the pictures don't lie to you, but no way that Fidel Castro is Justin Trudeau's dad. Don't even look it up. Don't look it up because there's no way that it's true. Next thing you're going to look at is just the staff. And, of course, Ohio State, you got Chip Kelly, you got Jim Knowles, two of the better coordinators in the country, if not the best two coordinators in the country. And for Oregon, you got Will Stein, obviously an up-and-coming offensive coordinator, but definitely hasn't had the pedigree that Chip Kelly's had, the experience. And then, of course, Tosh Lapui, who's had a great career so far at Oregon. He had been in Alabama for a while, so obviously, you know, he's a great coach, had some great experience there. But, of course, Jim Knowles is a guy that came from Oklahoma State, should have been a Broyles Award winner, and is one of the best coordinators in the country. So right there, as far as coaching staff, I'm going to have to go with Ohio State. So at this point, both teams are even as far as coaching staff. Next thing to look at is just the overall talent. And right here, according to 24/7 Sports, overall talent, Ohio State's number 3 in the country with 14 5-stars. 93.29 is their average, which is unbelievable. Only one team better as far as their average, and that's Alabama. But we saw what happened to those guys last week. But anyway, Ohio State at number 3, Oregon at number 6 as far as talent composite with a 90.42 as far as an average. So not just a huge difference as far as talent, which might shock some people if you hadn't been covering Oregon and following those guys. But Oregon's pretty comparable talent-wise to Ohio State. But obviously Ohio State with a little bit of an edge here, so they get the point going up by 1. Now just thinking about the NFL draft and what might happen. Some guys that are supposed to be top-round picks, and of course there are a couple guys projected. You got Donovan Jackson, a guard at Ohio State. Quinshon Judkins, obviously a transfer from Ole Miss, unbelievable back, really good football player. And then Jack Sawyer and Tyleik Williams. I mean, two guys that are projected right at the end of the first round on the defensive line and on the edge. So Ohio State does have some guys that are top-level talent guys, possible projected first-round guys this coming year. So right there, again, edge goes to Ohio State as far as talent upcoming for this year's NFL draft. That's +2 right there for Ohio State. Next thing to look at, just some statistical categories for both sides of the football. And right here, just total defense. Ohio State, number 1 in the country, only giving up 202.4 yards per game, 3.61 yards per play. And Oregon's not far off right here, 263.4 yards per game, number 10 in the country. So two really good defenses. I know both offenses are going to get a lot of publicity, but right here, Ohio State, obviously number 1 team in the country as far as yards, 20 yards better than the next defense, and that's Tennessee. And again, I keep saying this. Look what happened to those guys last week. Tennessee got smacked around. Their defense did play well, but obviously not enough to beat Arkansas. But right there, Ohio State number 1 in the country as far as defense. Oregon number 10 in the country, gives up about 60 more yards per game and almost 1 yard per play more for Oregon than Ohio State. So right there, Ohio State with another point. Up 4-1, so another +3 for this game. Next thing we're looking at is total offense. And right here, just scrolling down, seeing where both teams are. And you actually got Ohio State at number 9. So 510.2 yards per game. Number 1 in defense and number 9 in offense. Obviously hadn't played just great teams yet, but that's pretty impressive right there. 7.6 yards per play, 510 yards a game. And Oregon comes in down here at number 25. 458.6 yards per game, 6.5 yards per play. So again, Oregon I think has played a little bit better schedule, but Ohio State still pretty impressive, 1 more yard per play than Oregon, as well on offense and on defense, and over 50 yards per game more as well. So again, another point for Ohio State as far as statistics are concerned. I know that is skewed a little bit because of their schedule, but that's the way the stats fall right now. Another thing to look at here, which is obviously huge whenever you come to big games, is turnover margin. And right here, so far, Ohio State through 5 games is number 21 in the country. They're plus 0.8. So right there, averaging just less than 1, being plus 1 in turnovers per game. So they are in the plus range, but not just an overly impressive thing, just being 0.8 in the positive. But that is good enough to be tied for number 21 in the country. Oregon, we got to scroll down. We're even going to the next page on this one for turnover margin. And right here, Oregon Ducks, they come in at number 81. So tied for number 81 right here, minus 0.2. So that's an average of 1 in the positive for Ohio State. So Ohio State's had a better job this year so far with turnover margin, and that would be huge in this game. Whoever wins this game with turnover margin is going to have a great shot at winning this one. And so another point right here goes to Ohio State. Just looking at how they get after the quarterback, and right here, Oregon, 3.2 sacks per game, and Ohio State 3.4 sacks per game. So not just a huge difference. So I'm right there. I'm just going to give a push. No points right here awarded. Way too close. 16 sacks on the year for Oregon, 17 sacks on the year for Ohio State. Not just a huge difference. Now I'm just going to roll through a couple statistics, some more categories that we're looking at, and a couple things that we're looking at are just run rankings. The run rankings here are Ohio State is at number 14 in the country. So they are a much better run team than Oregon. Oregon's at number 67, so a point goes to Ohio State there as well. Defensive run rankings. Obviously, whenever you're the number 1 defense in the country, you've got to stop the run. And, of course, Ohio State does a great job with that, number 3 in the country in stopping the run. Of course, Oregon's a pretty good defense as well. Tons of great players. And Oregon comes in number 24 in the country stopping the run so far. Obviously, they played a much tougher schedule in stopping the run, and that would be talking about playing probably the Heisman frontrunner from Boise State, and that's that running back that's averaging over 10 yards a carry. Unbelievable player. And, of course, you're going to have trouble stopping that guy no matter who you have out there. But Oregon comes in number 24, Ohio State number 3 in stopping the run, which is going to be huge in a big game here. So we can give another point to Ohio State. Next category was passing efficiency. And Ohio State, as far as passing efficiency for their offense, was slightly above Oregon. They're in the top 10. And then Oregon was a little bit more efficient defensively than Ohio State was. So right there, a push as far as pass efficiency, pass defense. So neither team really gets a point right here on their efficiency. Another one to look at, though, is just the run rankings. Next thing to look at is just special teams. Of course, kickers are a big part on that. And Ohio State have a guy that's pretty decent. Last year 16 of 20. This year so far 2 of 2. So hadn't had just a ton as far as field goals, but he's been perfect on field goals and extra points. And of course, Oregon has a pretty veteran kicker. Last year went 13 of 14 in field goals. He actually went 5 for 7 in 2022. So far 6 of 7. Longest one he's made is 42 yards. So 2 pretty good kickers that are veterans that have played more than 1 year. This is not the first year kicker for either team. So right there, I'm just going to have to say a push for special teams. Of course, that includes punting, kickoff, all that stuff. And neither team has just a distinct advantage right there on any of them, so just a push there for special teams. So for me, those are just kind of the statistical things, both sides of the football that you're looking for. And the next thing you really look at are who are the explosive players and who are the guys that you think are going to be game changers. And when you talk about Ohio State, you've got tons of dudes as far as running backs. You've got Quinshon Judkins, you got Travion Henderson. So those are 2 of the best backs in the country on the same football team. The line's obviously one of the best in the country as well. But whenever you're talking about just explosive guys, and you got Igbuka on the outside, you got Jeremiah Smith, a freshman who's caught touchdowns in Ohio State's first 5 games. He's the guy, really. Somehow Igbuka's been taken over by a freshman, and he's a guy, a lot like the guy from Alabama, that he is an unbelievable athlete, not really much of a chance athletically for anybody to match up for him, whether it's safety, linebacker, doesn't matter. Going to be really tough to match up with that guy because he's a future NFL, probably Hall of Famer if he stays healthy, just based off his talent. With Oregon out there as well, Tez Johnson, freak. Evan Stewart, freak. Obviously came in from A&M. Hadn't had just a ton of production, just 16 catches. Somehow Tez Johnson, 43 receptions so far this year, 395, 9.2 average. They're just feeding Tez Johnson the ball. He's definitely their go-to guy on the outside. But they do have guys. I mean, that tight end, Ferguson, he's an absolute dog there as well. 16 receptions, but he's averaging a lot more even than Evan Stewart, 16.2 per reception. So they do have weapons out there. Tez Johnson is their main one. And running backs, Jordan James, obviously, 88 carries so far, over 500 yards, averaging over 100 yards a game. But to me, I just don't think they have the explosive players that Ohio State has. Igbuka and Smith on the outside, I think, are elite. Then I think Judkins is really kind of the difference here in the running back room. I think he would start for either team. as far as just his talent. Now, if he plays well in this game and plays with confidence is another thing, but I'm going to have to lean with Ohio State here as far as guys I think that are explosive on the offensive side. So if you're keeping up so far, I've got Ohio State +7. Now we're going to get into some things that are worth, to me, 2 points. And right here, very first thing, looking at quarterbacks. Who do I trust right here to make plays? You got Will Howard, who came from Kansas State. You got Dylan Gabriel, who came from Oklahoma. So both guys are first year in the system. But to me, Dylan Gabriel is the guy. I mean, he's the guy, obviously, in this game. He's had a lot of success at Oklahoma, a lot of success at UCF. So this is his third school, third coordinator. But he is one of those guys that has been very consistent making plays. He's number 3 all-time in touchdowns in the NCAA. So I think he's going to get a couple more this game. But Dylan Gabriel is the guy for me. So right there, 2 points for Oregon, because I think he's the guy that had the better shot of just going off and making plays. Will Howard, I think, is a good player, but I don't think he's elite with his arm. I don't think he's elite with his accuracy. He does a pretty good job running the football and making the offense click, but I just don't think that he's elite like Dylan Gabriel is. The next thing to think about is just the intangibles. And Oregon at home with an extra day's rest because they played on Friday is huge. I mean, Ohio State's going to have to travel, so right there's another day where your routine is off, your preparation is off. So right there, Oregon, another 2 points there as far as just how crazy the Autzen Stadium is going to be. That's going to be an amazing environment. Wish we could be there, but going to be a great environment for college football on Saturday for the Oregon Ducks at home with an extra day of rest. So right there, another 2 points. Next thing to look at are just games where they struggled. Ohio State hadn't struggled at all. They hadn't played anybody other than Iowa. I thought Iowa was a better team than what they showed. Obviously, the offense was absolutely atrocious for Iowa. Never got into the red zone, but Oregon did struggle a little bit with Boise and did struggle a little bit with Idaho. And I think Boise is by far the biggest win that either team has had, the most talented team that either one of them has beaten. So right there, as far as just having experience this year against a good football team, I think Oregon's had a little bit more because they played that Boise team that I think is pretty good. So I'm going to give Oregon another point right there for just experience this year against their schedule. To me, the most glaring stat, and right here I've got Ohio State up 2 at this point, and to me the most glaring thing is red zone and goal line offense and defense and what they're going to see right there. So whenever you're looking at the red zone goal line offense, Ohio State has been in the red zone 21 times and scored 20 touchdowns with 1 field goal. So 100% of the time they have scored 1 field goal. So that was 5% of the time that they kicked a field goal. So 95% of the time they're scoring touchdowns. So Chip Kelly's done a great job with his goal line red zone offense. And Oregon, they've also been down there 21 times, but they only scored 14 touchdowns. So that's 66% touchdowns there for Oregon. They've kicked 3 field goals. That's 81% total. So they have struggled in the red zone a little bit. Now, struggling is 81%. The bar is pretty high. Now, of course, Ohio State hadn't played the teams. Of course, Ohio State being 95% touchdowns is huge. And then if you look at the defense, Ohio State has only been in the red zone 5 times. Their defense only allowed 5 different possessions to get to the red zone so far this year in 5 games. And they've only given up 3 touchdowns. So right there, that's 60%. They haven't given up any field goals somehow. I don't even know how that's possible. They're number 3 in the country right there with that. And then when you're looking at Oregon, they've given up 12 attempts. And they've given up 7 touchdowns. So that's 58% touchdowns. And then they've given up 4 field goals there as well. So that's 11 out of 12 times anybody's gotten into the red zone, they've scored, of course, field goals. It's one of those things, if you don't block them, then it's just one of those things, hopefully they miss. And Ohio State's been lucky with that. But just giving up 12 attempts in the red zone is good enough. And giving up 7 touchdowns at 58% is 104th in the country. So Ohio State goal line red zone defense is number 3. Goal line red zone offense is tied for 1st. While Oregon's goal line red zone offense is 93rd in the country. So a huge strength right there for Ohio State as far as red zone goal line. That goes a long ways in today's college football. I think most teams are going to move up and down the field. They're going to find ways to move the football. But are they going to score touchdowns in the red zone right there? Oregon hasn't done as good a job this year in the red zone goal line. Now, Will Stein's going to have to do a great job with his game plan. Chip Kelly, we know, has a track record that they're going to score touchdowns when they get to the red zone goal line. So right there, just another 2 points for Ohio State. And right there, wouldn't you know, the dadgum line is 4 points. Really didn't plan this, but I pulled it up, and it's 4 points for Ohio State. Over under 52.5. I think all these lines are really good, but right there, 4 points. I wish it was something different because that's exactly what I got as well. Ohio State +4. I think this is going to be a really good football game, especially being at Oregon. It's going to be a tough environment. But to me, I see that defense traveling. I see the run game for Ohio State traveling. And I think the most important thing in this game is that red zone goal line, offense and defense traveling for Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to get the win. I think they're going to cover over 4 points. But let us know if you like these types of videos. We can do more kind of breaking down the games and seeing what we think about it and where we think the points are going to be scored and how we think the game is going to go. So make sure you subscribe so you can see everything we do for this college football season. Let us know where we missed in the comments, and we'll see you guys again in the next video.